more often than not, maybe for a little bit, but after you remove yourself from a toxic environment, you start to actually absorb the positivity or the pristineness, if you will, of the environment that you surround yourself with.
I was a boy in a toxic lake. I wasn't a toxic boy. And now as a man, it's so obvious that I was not the source of these toxins. I didn't make these jokes up. I heard them from people in my environment.
Conscious couples, business partners, and individuals, welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and relationship expertise to help you consistently cultivate the most magnificent relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges. We'll help you have the courage to be your authentic self, communicate effectively, and constructively resolve conflict.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching, speaking, podcasting, and hosting live events with conscious couples all over the world, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode 175, Who's the Source of the Drama? Also known as the Drom.
The Drom.
I knew you were going to do that. Thank you, sweetheart. Before we jump to this episode, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing all of this show and 70 others. I track metrics every day.
Every day.
And we now work with 106 as of yesterday. 106 podcasters and business owners on the coaching front and production side. So thank you, Next Level Podcast Solutions, for spreading so much mental health, personal development, personal growth, self-improvement into the world, because that is what I believe the world needs most. And that's why we're here. So before we jump into this episode, sweetheart, ladies first, what is your opening?
My intention first for our listeners is to help them through this podcast episode determine who is the source of the drama in their households, in their partnerships, in their fam systems, because every single person that you and I talk to have one source of all their drama. And believe it or not, when you actually understand who that source is, you can then begin to exert control whether or not you want to have that person in your life, at which proximity you want to put them in, etc., etc. So with that being said, I want to share a client story, which honestly, her story echoes so many stories that you and I have heard over the years. And this client of mine, she's in her late 20s. Obviously, we'll keep it anonymous. But one of the things that she and I recently spoke about was how her attachment trauma then subsequently turned into so many dysfunctional patterns and ultimately relationship avoidance. So essentially she went into pushing away everything and everyone that was actually healthy for her. And she and I were talking about how at the end of the day, she's the common denominator. And I had asked her, who do you think it is? And she looked around and she's like, oh no. And it was in that moment that she clicked and she realized all the drama in her life. It was her. And I said, yeah, but who do you think was the source of your drama? Who do you think is the source of you? And she's like, oh crap, it's my mom. And I said, yeah, your mom is the source of the drama, not just on what is happening in your own world, but how and why you keep pushing all of the healthy things that are meant for you, including your intimate partner, away from you. It is because your mom does not know how to actually relate to you. She doesn't know how to connect with you. That was the original attachment wound that she had growing up. Her mother was extremely emotionally neglectful. Her mother has a development level at probably 12 years old, unfortunately. And like I said, her story echoes so many people's stories because on the surface, it just simply looks like life is challenging. The partnership doesn't really work, that you are the one that is ultimately trying to do all these things and it's not working. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this one common thread, and it so happens to be family more often than not.
So for anyone out there watching or listening, think of someone in your life who goes, oh, just my luck. That's just my luck. Of course that would happen to me. What I'm coming to understand is that these people that think they're unlucky actually are in cycles and in patterns that create drama and trauma and bad things happening. Now, obviously, sometimes good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people. I'm not saying that there isn't some chaos in the universe, but one thing that I do know for sure, coaching so many people all over the world for the last decade, mentoring 10 years, coaching 8, is there are certain people who attract drama and or cause drama. And so for anyone out there watching or listening, there's a fundamental belief that you kind of have to adopt in order to go down this line of thinking, and it's cause and effect. So when I first got in a relationship with Emilia 5 years ago, my amount of drama in my life decreased massively. And then I would go back into old environments with family and friends, and drama would suddenly be back. And now we live a very peaceful, harmonious, tranquil life. It's really quite magnificent. And I came to realize, oh, okay, got it. So here's the metaphor. I've said this before, babe, on a coaching call. And later on, we did a relationship talks coaching call where I used this metaphor before. And later that night, Emilia said that was so beautiful. And you'll recognize it when I tell it. So get ready.
I am.
I'm obviously joking.
This is my get ready
Yeah.
face.
Are you comfortable, by the way? Is this good?
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah. Sweetheart.
Okay.
Get comfy, love. Yeah. Because I don't know how much you're loving the new chairs. Okay. Here we go. So this is something that I said on a coaching session, and this is a good metaphor for everyone out there watching or listening. Imagine there is a pristine lake, and there's mountains, and there's mountains. And it's the most beautiful setting you could possibly imagine. There's mountains in the background. There's snow at the top of the mountains that you can see, but it's probably 60 degrees. And this lake is gorgeous. You see eagles flying overhead. It's unbelievable.
I'm even removing the drama out of my life right now.
I love
just
it.
imagining this.
And there's beautiful trees, and and you hear an owl. And you can hear birds, and you see squirrels. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Straight up.
Can we go?
All right. Yeah. We're gonna go there this weekend. But anyways, so imagine it's pristine. There's a fish that jumps. You can hear the chirpers. Yeah.
Whoa.
There's a bullfrog going. I know. It's great.
Oh, ribbit.
No, real talk, sweetheart. I need you to come back to me. I need you to get it together.
I need you to share what this is all about.
Okay. It's a beautiful, virtuous spot of harmony. And love and nature, and it's prestigious. It's wonderful. Pristine. I want you to imagine, this is hard to hear, but I want you to imagine there's a corporation manufacturing facility nearby that takes a pipe under the ground, and the pipe goes right into the bottom of the lake. And it just toxins, waste, nuclear waste, whatever it is, okay, toxins, slowly starts to leak into the lake. And this lake was gorgeous. There was bald eagles overhead, okay? And little by little, it's we go back there every year, and it's getting a little worse. There's a little more weeds. There's a little more junk. There's a little more, the water's getting a little green, right? This isn't good. All of a sudden, the eagles leave, and the squirrels are dying. I'm being playful.
There's fish washing up on shore. Loaded.
But
dead.
The truth is, eventually, this is a swamp. This once pristine, beautiful setting is now a swamp. And I'm thinking of a past client that I had, and I did this same metaphor with her. And I said, listen, when you were younger, because she's like, I was such a bad person. I treated my siblings like shit. I yelled and I screamed and I fought them and all this stuff. And I said, listen, you might have been toxic, but you were not the source of the toxins. So imagine it was the water you were swimming in. And the source of this woman's toxins was her mother. I said, who is the source of the toxins? And she thought about it. And she's like, maybe my dad. I said, nope. She had this moment. It's my mom. And then it's her mom's mom. And the generational trauma. Okay. So here's the deal. We all have a pipe that is bringing toxins into our pristine lake. I grew up in an environment that had a lot of toxins. It had a lot of drama. It had a lot of trauma. But I was never the source of the toxins. And here's the problem. I grew up, and when I became an adult, I had some shame. And I'll give you a perfect example. I grew up where there was a lot of racism. And there were times when I was a kid where I would say a racist joke. And me and my friends would have racist jokes. And now looking back as an adult, I go, oh my goodness, right? I had friends in college of all different races, all different cultures all over the world. And I started to realize the errors of my ways. I was just a kid. I was a boy in a toxic lake. I wasn't a toxic boy. And now as a man, it's so obvious that I was not the source of these toxins. I didn't make these jokes up. I heard them from people in my environment that I won't name publicly, even though what the fuck. So here's the deal. Anyone out there watching or listening, the point of this episode is who's the source of the drama? It might be a family member. It might be a family friend. It might be a partner's friend. But there is always, always, always someone in your circle or extended circle who is the source of the toxins. And if you want, here's the deal. If you take that pipe out of the ground and you hold that corporation accountable, the eagles will come back. The bullfrogs will start going again. It will clean. Nature will take its course. And what I've found, and I really want to make this as clear as possible, I found Emilia Smith when I was 29 and a half years old, almost 30. I was basically a couple months from my 30th birthday. It was October and my birthday's in November. So it was a month away from my 30th birthday. And I took Emilia back into my old world, and she helped me sail into this new world after that. And she said, Alan, I can't go back with you to whatever that was that you were swimming in. I want you to come with me. And you said it in your own words. You wrote me a letter, actually, and I'll keep that part private. But I was like, honey, I'm coming with you. I don't want to go back there, right? Are you kidding me? So your bigger, better, and brighter future is available to you, but you got to get that pipe out of the fucking lake. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So the pipe really represents, obviously, the toxic person, whoever that is that you've identified. More than likely, it is a parent that is actually not pulling the toxic pipe or that toxic person out of their life. And
so how do you identify the toxic person? Help our listeners.
I'm going to get to that in a second. Yeah. So you had mentioned it's probably passed on. That's the epigenetics. That's that drama and that trauma that's passed down through shame that most families do not know how to break.
Can you talk to us about generational shame and a little bit high level of how that works?
Yep. So high level, most people never break the shame that comes up. So in a nutshell, shame is I am a bad person. So you had kind of alluded to that. I'm not a bad boy, or I'm not a toxic boy, right? Like whatever that narrative, that was the narrative that was shame-based. That was I am at the core, the essence
Instead of
who I am
racist, I grew up in a racist environment.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to jump on here and talk about the Conscious Couple podcast that I've been listening to for a while now. And I absolutely love, whether you're single, in a relationship, or not, this is the podcast for you. I mean, think about it. If you're not in a relationship, look at it like building a house. If you were going to build a house, wouldn't you get the instructions, figure it out, look it over, start practicing some of the little things so that once you start doing it, it's going to be the best house that you ever built? Or if you're in the house already and there's issues that are going on with it, aren't you going to try and fix them? Or think about it while you're building the house and the base layer, there's some issues there. Don't you want to correct those and fix them before you work on the rest of it? Have a great day, guys. Awesome podcast.
And so, shame, it wraps around your identity, and you start to associate the belief systems of who you are with that shame. So essentially, you don't realize that your behaviors are separate than who you are as a human being. And that's where shame and guilt, really, there's a big difference in that. So you just essentially described how you felt guilty for your behaviors and what you were repeating.
I still do.
For sure.
Yeah, and I had said racist jokes as a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember, I have those memories vividly, and I do feel guilty for that now, understanding the implications.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was 10, I didn't really understand.
And that guilt is actually extraordinarily healthy in the way that you will now not conduct that behavior or condone those behaviors or those thoughts or those 100%. Thoughts, being said. So, unfortunately, most people never get out of shame. They never take ownership, which is what you did. Most people never actually break those shame-based cycles in their family because no one ever talks about it. No one ever goes to therapy. No one ever has that mirror reflecting back upon them in self-awareness, which ultimately when you do that, you start to recognize that there is a separation between the person and their behavior. And that based on our environment, we are highly influential beings. And as a result of that, when we take account of who we are and at the very core essence of what we do, if we remove ourselves from that toxic situation, are we still repeating those patterns over time? More often than not, maybe for a little bit, but after you remove yourself from a toxic environment, you start to actually absorb the positivity or the pristineness, if you will, of the environment that you surround yourself with. That's why we were talking about proximity when it comes to whoever is that drama person. So number one, identification of who is that person in your life.
So how do we identify that?
Yep.
I know.
So the number one person is anyone who does not have the capacity to actually self-reflect. That number one is a really good tell because the person who is addicted to drama or is drama welcoming is the person who does not have the ability to self-reflect. If they did, they would have to take an account of what you just gave us beautiful example to of, oh my goodness, I am a part of this problem. I'm a part of this issue. I'm contributing to our family's toxic cycle and I have a role to play in that.
Yeah. So taking ownership is another big one.
Yep.
Right. So someone who takes ownership and self-reflects is
self-reflect and then ownership.
Ownership is number two.
Yeah. You cannot take ownership for that which you don't reflect upon.
So to make this tangible, I self-reflected on my past and I saw that when I was a kid, me and some of my friends would say racist jokes, including me. And I would take ownership for the fact that I did that and then I would change it. And I haven't at all participated in any of that ever since college. And because I met all these incredible people of different races and I realized, and I remember when I went back to see some of those old friends, I remember thinking, wow, we grew up in an environment that was mostly white. And we didn't understand the implications of, at least I didn't anyways. Some other people probably did. Okay. So for anyone out there watching or listening, because I have a question for you. Actually, that's really important for this because you just gave the example of moving from a toxic lake to a more pristine lake and that what you live in now. I think talking about the pain of identification around the source of the toxin, I think that that's a really important dialogue to have in this podcast because it's not easy. Your body expression, you just literally took a deep breath because of how that pain is. It's not easy when you identify the source of the toxin. As a matter of fact, it is extremely hard. It is extremely painful. And that's why most people avoid it. That's why most people never go to therapy. That's why most people never have these conversations with their family. And that's why these toxic cycles never break. And we just are addicted to the drama, which then brings more trauma, which then just continues to perpetuate this again and again. Yeah. So you have a concept called breaking the cycle that you taught me when we first got together. And it's all about identifying these patterns of trauma and drama and breaking them. And you called me the breaker of chains. I grew up in an environment with a lot of alcohol. I quit drinking 6 years ago. That was a big moment of breaking patterns. So to answer your question, it's really painful to see how someone you love is actually the cause of most of their own pain. Because we've all seen loved ones in pain. And I'll give you an example, and this is a tangible example. If you see someone who's a family member who you love, who gets lung cancer, and they're suffering through chemo and lung cancer, and you know that they smoked cigarettes for 35 years, you also know that they were most likely the cause of their own pain. And that can be really, really sad and really hurtful. And now that you have awareness, you can change now. And that's the pro and the con. The con is it's deeply painful and sad emotionally. The pro is now you can make a conscious choice. And what I will share with every listener out there, when you identify who the source of the toxins is, the farther you sail away from that person, the less drama and trauma will be in your life. And that will be the evidence you need to continue that happening. And if you do bring that person back into your world, make sure you do it on your own terms. And Emilia is the one who helped me with this tremendously. But I still spend time with some of the source of my toxins growing up, but it's on my terms now. I have boundaries. I set the rules of the game. And that's called being an adult. And we all have to graduate to that, especially when we grow up in an environment that, quite frankly, had generational trauma that maybe they didn't have Google. They didn't have ChatGPT. They didn't have this podcast. So I'm not making it, I understand it, but I'm not making it okay. And so at the end of the day, without getting too preachy here, I think that everyone needs to grow up, take ownership for their part in it, identify the source of the toxins, and then sail the fuck away. Mm-hmm. Because your life will get unbelievably better. And now you can lead with inspiration and be a leading by example role model for that very person who you still love, but maybe from a distance or with boundaries. What would you say to close this episode?
So to close this episode, we actually just had one of our clients, relationship talks coaching clients, who literally just stepped into their courage with their source of their toxin. And we're so freaking proud of them. You know who you are if you're listening. And finally sent that text to their mother that was actually stepping into that which they were terrified to do. And so in closing for this episode, it is, look around your social groups and ask yourself the question, who out of all the people that I know are the worst at self-reflecting? Chances are in that pool, I want you to find the top 3 people that are the worst at taking ownership. They blame everyone else. They're defensive. They never take accountability.
They blame the government. They blame the
point
world.
Outwards.
They always point outwards. They can never blame self.
Yes. And then out of those people, you'll likely land on one person who is not great at emotional regulation. That is the third marker of someone who is so addicted to drama and can't help but attract that. And so you likely have found your person. So with that being said, in that, I want to invite everyone to our next Relationship Talks event, which is the 48th. So we've been doing this for a long time, and it's so incredible how to determine your relationship's commitment level. It is so powerful.
48 divided by 12. That's 4 years.
That's 4 years. So 4 years of this.
4 years of Relationship Talks events. Please join us. They are unbelievable. They are not recorded. Continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was talking with another client talking about some of the things that we're going to get into. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for this event because of what I gave her a little sneak peek into, how committed you are. One marker of this, just as a sneak peek, is how willing you are to confront the conflict and repair conflict. And that's just one indicator. So we're going to get into a lot of different indicators of where your commitment level is at in your relationship and some things that a lot of people will never talk about based on the research. So this will be June 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click the link in the show notes to register.
The link will be in the show notes for that. You can tell if a business owner starts a business and they quit at the first sign of conflict or challenge, they're not that committed. That's the same goes for relationships. We can't wait for that one. Also, if you want Relationship Talks coaching, Emilia and I, we do this every single week. The first one is free. Please click the link in the show notes. We will help you out. It's a full half hour, and we're only there. We're not going to sell you anything. We're there to help you flourish in your relationship. We've been doing this for 4.5 years now. Okay, we started Relationship Talks coaching long before we started the virtual events. So it's been 4.5, almost 5 years of coaching couples from all over the world. I'm telling you, these are not you problems. These are human problems. These are relationship problems, and they are solvable. Click the link in the show notes. We appreciate you. And as always, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please check the show notes to connect with us and say hello on social media.
If you and your partner resonated with this episode, please leave us a 5-star review at the link in the show notes and share this with someone you love. Until next time, it's not about you or me, it's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.